welcome to Frenemies of the People by CBL. I'm Dennis. That's Patrick. That's Cianna. And we have a special guest. By the way, we are still not sponsored by Diet Coke. This episode will probably put them over the top. So, back in the day, CBS Chicago had a distinguished journalist named Harry Porterfield who used to do a piece called Someone You Should Know. And we have someone you should know today, and it's Channel 2's own new talent who just came back to Chicago earlier this year. Local girl made good. She is in the big time now. Marissa Sulek, welcome.
Thank
To
you
Frenemies
guys
of the
so
People.
much.
Trying
What
to
an
do a podcast.
intro. Really makes me feel like I'm back at home, which I am.
You are. So, tell us a little bit about your journey. You grew up in Park Ridge, and
hmm
you went off to be a journalist, and now you made it to Chicago.
Somehow, some way. Yeah. So I went to the University of Illinois, where Lynn Holly was actually one of my professors. But I started out there in elementary education thinking like, this is what I want to do. I want summers off, all of that. But then I hit this point where I was like, I don't want to be watching other people's kids like as my job. So I always knew I wanted to be a reporter deep down. I just knew it was going to be a lot of work, and I was like, do I want to do all of that? And I was like, you'll never know unless you try, Marissa. So my senior year, although I was an advertising major, I decided just to put myself into some journalism classes. I joined the morning show at Illinois and made a reel, sent it off, and was able to get a job first in the Quad Cities. So Davenport, Moline, Rock Island, border of Illinois and Iowa. I was there for 2 years. I was a MMJ, multimedia journalist. So I shot, wrote, edited everything myself. For the most part, we got some photographers at times. But yeah, I was there for a little over 2 years. Really wanted to get out of there, which was it was great and everything, but just being in rural Iowa, Illinois was not my vibe. Being from Chicago, so I applied and I got a job in Nashville, also as an MMJ, but was able to become mostly a reporter when I was there for 4 years and honestly loved it. I was just so sick of the summers and knew that home was definitely where I wanted to pretty much end up and. I ended my contract there back in November of 2024. Didn't have a job here, but I had some connections at the time, and I was able to get a freelance position with CBS, which started in January, and it's been good so far. It's been a lot of work and a whole new learning curve for me, but just being home and reporting back at home and having your family and friends watch you is an experience unlike any other. So far, it's been worth it. Yeah.
Sienna was a local TV news gatherer, reporter, broadcaster.
Yes,
Where
MMJ,
at?
WJTV, CBS affiliate in Jackson, Mississippi. So that's my hometown. So when you were talking about making that transition over to Chicago, I definitely understand. Like, it's nothing like being around your community and being around family and friends while you're doing what you really enjoy. So I can definitely attest to that. And I laughed at the fact that you said that the summers in Nashville wa- were like really hot. And because, I'm from Mississippi, so I'm used to that weather and I love it. Meanwhile, the winters here are really hard for me, but here I am sticking it through.
As I was say, like I thought Nashville was harsh, but heck, you're from Jackson. I'm sure that was even worse. The humidity was unreal. I couldn't even like do a live shot without sweating off half my makeup because
Yep,
you put your makeup on at the beginning of the day, you go
yep.
live at 5. I'm like pretty much reapplying everything, and yeah, I commend you. But that was really cool. So you got to start out in Jackson, your hometown yourself.
Yes, yes.
Very cool. You don't have to do this ladder. You could just start out and do that.
Patrick, I'm a little worried about your makeup dripping off in this broadcast. But what are your questions for Marissa while we got her? She's a go-getter, Patrick.
No, I would want to know from, and we've had to work on our client projects that take us across the country, right, into some of the smaller media markets and these other aspects and where required to do everything about maybe a subject matter. You're like, I learned about this yesterday and now I'm becoming an expert on, you could say cannabis cultivation or gambling or some of these things. So from a perspective of having to learn potentially new stories, very quickly and get to air, versus, hey, this is the car crash or some of the more routine local news stories. What was that experience like going from a smaller market like the Quad Cities to a medium-sized market like Nashville, now back in one of the largest media markets in America?
I will say, for the most part, that is a really good question. It's kind of the same, dare I say, no matter where you're at. Like, for example, in the Quad Cities, if I ever was on like a corn and soybean yield story, I always bring this one up because I knew nothing, and I still know not much about it at all. You start off each day, whether you're, whatever city you're in and the story you have, probably not knowing much at all, regardless of any story. If you've been following something for a long time, cool, you get an extra leg up on that. But yeah, you pretty much start from scratch and you just become a sponge and you try and absorb as much as you can. But at the end of the day, like, I'm never going to be an expert in this field. Like, this is why we have experts and that's why we talk with them and we try and really dumb it down for viewers. But I just kind of start off my day researching what I can, get the gist of it, and hopefully have some pretty concrete questions to that I want to know that I hope other viewers want to know. And hopefully get that job done by the end of the day. But I will say, yeah, you're never going to be an expert. You can try, like, I didn't study these fields no matter what story I'm doing, whether it's criminal justice or, like I said, the farmers, like, the farmers know what they're talking about. I don't. I'll try my best to understand it, but for the most part, I'm just a person studying this a little bit and trying to convey that to viewers.
Did you always love news?
I did. I would always wake up every morning in high school, get my breakfast, and watch GMA, Today Show, ABC, WGN, CBS here. I'd always flip through. My favorite though is CBS Sunday Morning. That is like religiously every Sunday. That is my church. Like, I watch that. And then I try and watch 60 Minutes when I can as well. Yeah, just always grew up watching it. I feel like my parents and I feel like Chicago is just a really big news media market. People value news. Like, news people are, I just hate to put like celebrity status here in Chicago, but they kind of are because I don't know, New York, you have like network, LA, you kind of just have like showbiz, and then Chicago, you have news people.
Yeah, one of the reasons that we decided to start this modest little effort is to help give a boost to our friends and colleagues in the news media, because I think across the country you're saying that, it's hard to, people are getting their news from places that are not the most credible and maybe not supporting the journalism in the way they should. But I do think you're right. I think Chicago is a stronger market for it. A lot of news junkies in this town. And also, to your point, we don't have country music stars walking around the streets of Chicago. So we have Marissa Sulek and Joe Donlin and Erika Sargent walking around.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. In Nashville, you're right. You have all the country music stars. Like, those are the people look out for when they're there. Local news was not that big of a deal there. I mean, yes, you have your religious people who watch that as well, but for the most part, I was so happy to come back to Chicago because I was like, these viewers like actually really do care. So makes it more worthwhile for sure.
So you covered some politics in Tennessee, I saw in your backstory, and I know you're much broader array of assignments from what you've told us here in Chicago, but how does it compare? How do other states compare in terms of politics? I think that's another thing that's unique about Chicago.
I think so too. Well, I mean, obviously, being here in Illinois, it's such a blue state. Being in Tennessee, complete opposite. You got red, and there's such a super majority there that there's no trying to convince any lawmaker. You know what's going to happen when a bill's introduced immediately. Like, there's no guessing game because you pretty much can be confident like this is going to go toward the supermajority. And I will say, like, yes, we have kind of a Democratic supermajority here in Illinois, but I feel like I studied that one so well in Tennessee that I like knew it like the back of my hand. I knew all the lawmakers. Illinois, I really haven't had too much experience covering politics here. I'm not down in Springfield by any means. But Nashville was unique because it was the capital and it was also where I was working. Where here it's like we can try our best, and we do a decent job. We have connections in Springfield, but our political reporters aren't there. We're doing this from 2 hours away, so it's a little bit of a different ball game. And yeah, you kind of use whatever reporters or stations or affiliates you have in that area for resources. But to be there is just probably a little bit more worthwhile if you really want to get into the nitty gritty of politics, just covering politics in general, that is. But yeah, completely different just being in a blue state with a massive city like Chicago here compared to Tennessee. I had no idea how much the supermajority really mattered until I was there.
Of course, City Hall is a totally other part of the Chicago culture.
That is so darn true too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess because I work the night shift right now, it's really I don't get to go to City Hall too often myself. But whenever we do cover that, I know Chris Ty's there a lot. He's our political reporter for the most part. Yeah, that was really unique too. I mean, like, yeah, we had a city council in Nashville, but having City Hall and aldermen, I was like, you kind of feel like a fish out of water, even though you're from Chicago. I'm like, oh, this is new. This is not what every other city has. Um, but yeah, I will say the aldermen have been really great. Every single one I've reached out to, obviously they're a elected official and they want to get their name out there, but super nice and always willing to talk and help us get these stories out there as well. But yeah, that's an interesting ball game too.
When I was many years ago, shortly after they invented the radio, when I was doing news in Chicago, I was also general assignment. I used to joke that I would cover fires, murders, politicians, or all of the above in the same story if it was a good day.
Yeah, that's so true. Like you have to like that's regardless, like if we're doing a story on like obviously like a murder or something like that, they're always wanting to get elected officials or older people who like understand that specific little region to have that expert opinion. But you're right, we do try and cram so much into one 1 minute and 30 second story, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to now introduce this person, and it takes time out of my story just to introduce them. We're dealing with time limits all the time, but you're right, we cram all of that into one.
So speaking of time limits and the constraints on storytelling that is impacting people's familiarity and understanding of issues, what, from your perspective, being in the different markets, what feedback did you get the most of? Would people say in one market, I saw you on TV and I disagreed with your story or I loved it? Or were they yelling at you on the Facebook replay? Or are they saying I saw it on YouTube? Was there some similarity in each of the markets? Or when you're out doing your business and people are like, I've seen it, what is where they're seeing and you're hearing from the audience where you're connecting with them most?
Yeah, I feel like it is especially like well in Nashville, I feel like digital was such a huge, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, that footprint really was how we grabbed viewers. Just no one was turning on the broadcast in Nashville. I mean they are, but not compared to probably a bigger market like Chicago. We're here, our prime, especially at CBS, our big number one thing is the stream. I think we were the first ones to start in Chicago, and that's where we were really starting to get a lot of viewers who were going away from cable, typical broadcast. So right now, stream. The amount of people who messaged me being like, I saw you on YouTube, not YouTube TV, actual YouTube is amazing to me. And I'm so surprised. I'm like, my friends are just on YouTube watching YouTube shorts, all of that. I had no idea because I'm just not, that's not how I get my media or my news at all. But I will say being home, and maybe it's just like being around the older generation and talking to my parents' friends a lot. They are still tuning in at 10 o'clock at night. They just love having that routine.
Yeah.
So they still have like their cable, whether it's DirecTV, Comcast, YouTube TV, all of that. But I will say like, and I feel like it's so essential for our stations in Chicago to be on Instagram and TikTok. I will say we do a decent job at CBS, but we can always do better. Because that's just like where everyone my age is watching, whether it's YouTube, Shorts, Instagram Reels, TikTok. They love videos. They do love still hearing from reporters. I will just shoot a quick like 30-second thing on my phone, talking to it for 30 seconds. We post it on TikTok and it goes viral. And I've even talked to our digital team and they're like, no, people love still hearing from reporters. Like they still love seeing people and trusting a voice, a source, an affiliate, all of that. So at least that's comforting in a business where you're like, oh my God, I don't know where this is going. Just to hear like people still value reporters and they still trust us. So
Yeah. Is TikTok your number one platform when you've got a quick breaking news story that you want to do something on?
that's a good question. I don't know exactly at CBS where they just love that stream like no other. They will
But
go
in
on
terms
that
of when you're out in the field
stream.
with the story, what's the platform you
Oh,
go
for
to?
me,
Yeah.
God, I feel like for me it is Facebook, just because a lot of older, like my parents, they are all on there sharing that stuff like no tomorrow. I love Facebook and I don't know, personally I like Instagram just to like get to my friends.
Mhm.
I am just like not a TikToker. I feel like I need to get on that personally. And Twitter, it's just like ancient. I don't know. I feel like there's still people on there and it is a good way to like connect with journalists. And I know some journalists use that one religiously, but I cannot get, I've tried it. I like it. I have followers on there, but like it's not my go-to. I'll do it for like court things and update people. I'll be like, go to my Twitter and watch my thread or read my thread on everything that's happening with this proceeding. But that's
So
really it.
for your friends, we're gonna put this on YouTube. So maybe they'll see you on
Ooh,
YouTube.
maybe. Okay, you guys are with it.
You could be YouTube famous.
Marissa, it's interesting that you talk about the order of how you publish your news and different channels because when I was in MMJ, you know, you are responsible for recording, editing, all of those things. And then immediately after, I had to go Facebook Live or take pictures for Facebook, send it in to the digital team, and then they'll go to X. And then now I feel like it's more so of the journalist is responsible for using other platforms like TikTok to be able to tell their story. So I think it's very interesting how it's evolved, but yet it's still kind of, you know, the same thing of putting digital first.
Absolutely. No, and those Facebook Lives, I remember going to, and like, they would still do it. We'll be at scenes that it's breaking news, and they're like, "Can you do a Facebook Live?" And I'm like,
Hmm.
"Let me just get situated."
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
Sometimes, but those do so well.
yeah.
Just because once it's done, you could post it,
Hmm.
and then people could share it, and then that's when
Hmm.
it really starts getting some more traction. But you're right, you're doing like a million things. You have digital being like, "Can you send me a photo? Can we have a mic check? We put you on the stream." Get ready, we're gonna go on live for the broadcast. Like it's just you're juggling so much. I
Hmm.
will say being at CBS now and just being with an O&O like Paramount, it is we have so many people in the newsroom and having a union, they have their certain jobs too. So it is like less stress on me, I feel like. But especially small markets and medium markets, you're really
Hmm.
doing a lot.
Hmm.
But who knew? Yeah, coming to Chicago, I was like, oh my God, a bigger city. I'm gonna have so much to do. It is nice having those unions and having people having, just their job.
Well,
So you're not juggling so much.
we're a union town, so it's a good thing. So,
Yeah.
uh, uh, in the time we have remaining, I wanted to talk about one story you did recently, talking about media platforms. There's an old school media platform or provider, if you will, that you did a story about an Edison Park institution,
I'm so glad you
Kaage's
brought up a really
Newsstand.
story that meant a lot to me. Thank you. Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. Everybody, our thousands of viewers should log on to this story and find it on the interwebs. Or give us a little teaser on it.
Well, this was so I grew up like, yeah, Park Ridge is like really close to Edison Park. So just being a local girl, I went to Edison Park Lutheran Church, and we'd always know about this like newsstand down the street. And like when I was young, like people went to this newsstand all the time. Like it was still a place people would go to get the Sun Times, the Tribune, all of that. But as the years have gone on, like there's less papers there, there's less customers, but this guy named Mike Kaage loves it. And it's like his number one thing. He wants people never ever to like forget about news or newspapers for that matter, even though it's a dying industry and he knows it. It's a newsstand at the corner pretty much off of Northwest Highway. And this guy, Mike Kaage, his family's had it in the family business for pretty much like almost 100 years. Um, and even though, yeah, newspapers are dying, he still has 75 daily customers that want to come up and get a paper and just have that connection with Mike every single day. It's kind of like, you wake it up, you have your cup of coffee, you read the news. Well, these people like love waking up, getting their cup of coffee, and going to see Mike to get their paper, and then reading the news. But yeah, I got word from this is the beauty of living at home. My dad's friend was like, "You got to do a story on the Kaage newsstand. It's closing," and I was like, "No way." So like the next day after my workout, I like drove over there and I was like, "Are you actually closing?" And he was like, "Yes, at the end of June." And I was like, "Oh my God, we got to do a story like ASAP. Like we got to do it now." I wanted to like beat other people to it. It's not the hardest news story, but I still wanted to be first. And yeah, he let us come on by. He still has this newsstand. He operates 7 days a week from 4 a.m. till 9 a.m. But he's reached this point where he's like, I want to hang out with my grandkids more. I don't know if I want these hours all the time. So he's closing it. And I think it is like the last newsstand in Chicago, which is kind of sad. Like talk about a media platform that really is dying. But he was trying to keep it alive somewhat, even though it was a small group of customers. And it was really cool to see, like, after I did that, like the next day, or maybe it was later that week, but it was on the front page of the Sun Times. And then there was everyone else, like NBC picked it up. I was like, this is why I try to be first. Like, you obviously want to be certain in certain stories, you want to be the first one, but you also want to be right. But this one, I was like, I just want to be first with this one, just to beat
That,
others. And it was
that
because I'm from this area. I'd hate to see other people pick that up.
that's great. Well, it's a very well done piece. It has kind of a CBS Sunday morning vibe to it. So,
That
uh,
it did. Thank you so much. Ultimate compliment for me as someone who watches that all the time.
well, I'm quite sure that one of these days you'll be on a show like that or 60 Minutes, given what you've done since you got to town. All right, so this is the part of the show. I think I warned you about this, and we'll give you a little help when we get to you. It's sounds terrible, can't wait.
Oh my
Okay,
God. That's right.
I'm going to start with something that every TV station really across the country has done. They call it the kicker story, right? At the end of the newscast, the Chonkosaurus. Okay, and I have to admit, for a while I didn't. No offense to the Chonkosaurus, I didn't really care about the Chonkosaurus. He looks like he belongs in the Chicago River as this ginormous snapping turtle, kind of. I mean, it's probably pretty on the inside, but not on the outside. Well, now, what sounds terrible, but now I can't wait to hear more about it, is Chonkosaurus apparently has a girlfriend. I'm not sure how the biologists and scientists who watch the river know which one's the girl turtle and which one's the guy turtle. That'll be for Nat Geo's YouTube channel. But that's my sounds terrible. Chonkosaurus love.
That
How
is
about,
so, I have not heard of this. Should I
yes,
have known of
yeah.
the
It's
Chonkosaurus?
on we're on the cutting edge of the news here
Yeah, you
at
guys are beating me
Frenemies.
to it.
Patrick, what do you got?
Well, aside from, I'm going to have to research Chonkosaurus live streams and get to the bottom of the citizen journalists who are covering that. What I
Might be
think,
on HBO Max.
oh yeah, well, no, Dennis, now it's Max again. You forgot they've rebranded for the third time. It's now just Max again. But I think the other part, it sounds interesting and terrible all at the same time, is just the amount of people that are now citizen journalists and showing up at protests and walks and marches. And I don't know how that's impacting you as your news gathering, but we had some uh, relatively decent sized protests out where I live this weekend. And it's just interesting, like, everyone in fact, has a First Amendment right and the ability to videotape these things, but sometimes they're like trying to get in front of the reporters and all these things, and it's really creating some conflict of what is the live news or a respected news source in a moment of something that's going on. And I know that's where people like you on the ground do make a big difference, because a lot of people are just, I want to see what's going on, but Patrick might have an agenda of what I'm showing versus someone else that's like, let me give you a balanced picture. So I think that evolution of the citizen journalist at times of civil distrust and unrest is something I'm not looking forward to.
I'm gonna have to say the 90-degree weather this weekend.
You're from Mississippi.
I
Probably.
can't wait. It sounds terrible for you all, but I can't wait.
Okay.
Oh, you can't wait for
You
that.
can't
Yeah.
wait for
Sorry,
it.
that's
He's emphasizing
absolutely
the can't wait part.
yes, yes. Oh
Okay,
my
so
God, that was
so
good.
Marissa, I got one to help you off the schneid, just in case you have any performance anxiety. So you came back to Chicago to be with the big dogs, and I'm not talking about Joe and Erica. I'm talking about a couple of creatures that you live with who, when you walk them, you probably need to pick up after them.
The dogs I'm literally talking about that might interrupt this because they're barking outside, Harry and Sally. Yes. Love them. And yes, such a good point. Like, yes, I love walking them all the time, but yeah, no matter how many times I walk them, they will poop every single time.
And we're not talking about little yippy dogs.
No, these are Great Pyrenees. They're a Great Pyrenees mix. So they're, you know what, they're a mix. So they're not like the actual purebred that's like 100 pounds, but you know, they're 60 plus. So they're, what they give to the world when they go number two is quite large. And then we have to, especially on a hot, steamy summer day, you're walking around with that. I'm a terrible citizen and I don't put it in other people's garbages, but I do put it in like a community garbage, you know, like if you're at a park. I'm not carrying that stuff around.
Hopefully, hopefully this appearance won't destroy your career because you got a lot of energy and a lot of great ideas and a lot of personality and a commitment to journalism, and we commend you. But if it is terrible, it's probably Frenemies people. So thanks for joining us. Producer Grace is our producer. She's also Grace Draws Stuff on the internet. You should check it out. And we thank you all for joining us. See you soon.